Hello everyone, welcome back to Kirklees Guitar School. Today we're going to have a look at Shallow, specifically the Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper version from A Star Is Born. So this has got some really lovely fingerpicking stuff in it. I do recommend having a go at this. This bolts into Module 3 of our fingerpicking course we're currently working on over on the Facebook group. If as and when that's available, I'll put the links to that in the description as well. Now, there's a free PDF that accompanies this lesson. I highly recommend that you download that and you work along with us as I go through the slides with a pencil and make your own notes. Now, there's two ways that you can get that. You can either go to the first link in the description and that'll take you to our private Facebook group. Head to the Facebook group, join the group, navigate to the Files tab, and every tab I've ever done could be downloaded there completely for free. If Facebook's not your thing, second link in the description is our email list. You can join that, and every Saturday I send out an email with that week's tabs. You know, the lessons that I've covered in the week. The tabs are all attached to that and you get that directly into your inbox. So either way, that's how you get the tabs. Right, today's lesson, these are the chords we're going to work on. We're using a G chord, a C chord, an E minor chord, an A chord, A minor, F sharp over D, which we'll talk about in a second, and then a B minor chord. Now, this whole piece bolts into the fingerpicking course that we're currently halfway through. Now, this piece is a great example of moving bass notes. You know, think with like sort of fiddly bits on the top. So let's have a look at that figure to start with. Now, we're going to start with an E minor 7 chord. Now, an E minor 7 is an E minor, and we take his ring finger and his pinky and plonk them there. For the sake of today's class, we don't need the pinky on the high E string down at the bottom. We're just going to put that 3rd fret of the B string with his ring finger. And I'm going to pick the E string, the D string, the B string, and then the G one after another. And I'm probably going to use thumb, thumb, middle, index for that. Moving on, we've got his F sharp over D chord. So a slash chord, I did a video on slash chords if you'd like to know a little bit more about it. You'll find that on the YouTube channel. We're going to pick the bass note. Now I play an F sharp over D. This note here is an F sharp. I put my thumb over and catch that note. And then I have the triangle for the D chord. Some people will play it like this if your thumb can't get over. I'm going to use my thumb for today. So I put my thumb over to that 2nd fret and I pick that with my thumb. While I'm doing that, I get the D chord in position and I use the 3 fingers, index, middle and ring, to pick all 3 of those strings. So I've got the bass note first, and then I pick those 3 together. He says. It's all kind of in one motion. And then I go to a G chord and I'm picking the bass note with my thumb, and then I'm picking the D, the G and the B strings all at the same time with that sort of claw motion. The more time you spend on the first couple of slides in this lesson, the easier the rest of the song will be, because this is the lovely bit that everybody wants to get. Pause the video and get that under your fingers. If you're okay so far, the next bar on that line is a C chord. Now this bit's ever so slightly different to how it appears in the verses. It's a little bit more ornate in the intro. So we're going to pick the root and the major 3rd, which is the A string and the D string. And I'm going to pick both of those with my thumb, one after another. I'm then going to take my middle finger and I'm going to pick the B note, the B string C note on the B string with my middle finger, and then I'm going to use my pinky to play the 3rd fret of the same string. I'm then going to pick the 2 bass notes again, A string and D string, followed by middle finger on the high E string, And then notice how my third finger, the very last note, is still on that third fret with the pinky to hit the last note, third fret of the B string. Notice how my pinky didn't lift off. If you want to use different fingerings, be my guest. This is kind of, it's a bit of a hybrid between classical and sort of the country and western claw method. I try not to think about it too much. And I think with fingerpicking also, if you catch the occasional string in the wrong place, as long as it's not a consistent error, all of these notes all work really nicely together, and the fingerpicking police aren't going to come and get you. So if there's one note kind of going awry every once in a while, don't beat yourself up too much about it. Then the final part of this figure, we're going to glue this all together in a second. So we've done this bit. We then go to the C chord, and then it finishes. We pick the bass note of the G chord, then claw it, and then I've got this D chord. So I'm clawing 2 chords on the bounce. And then you've got this sort of twiddly bit here. Now what I tend to do is I'm gonna take all of the fingers off the fretboard, but I'm gonna keep them near to this D shape, because it sort of works through that arpeggio of the D chord. So I'm taking my fingers off, but I'm keeping them relatively close. I'm gonna pick the high E string, and then with my middle finger I'm gonna hammer on to the 2nd fret and then pull off again. I then take my ring finger, play the 3rd fret on the B string, and then I take my middle finger again and play that 2nd fret of the G. Now if you want to do it more like the D shape, you know, where I'm sort of using the traditional fingering for the D chord, be my guest, but it just feels, I feel like I've more control doing that pull off with the middle finger personally. Now I'm picking all of that with my index finger, but you could do a little bit of both. You could use middle for the E string, index for the G, for the B, and then thumb for the G. I'm using my index finger for all of that, because I'm sort of thinking of it like an arpeggio with one finger. So imagine you were using a plectrum for it. I'm thinking of it like that. So everything that we've covered there, the first 4 bars, we've covered in the previous 3 slides. And then can you see in the bottom, we're on the 2nd line, 2nd to last bar, it's just like the intro again. Now it breaks out of this pattern for the verses. It just kind of, it almost chops a section out before he starts singing. Now the verse 1 and verse 2 of this song, verse 1 and verse 2 of this song are exactly the same. It's just the verse 1's the male led vocal, and the 2nd time around is the female led vocal. So the entire verse that we're going to work through here is identical for both of them. Okay? It's just this first section that we've worked on. It kind of takes the cliff notes and all the cool bits. So pause the video, get that under your fingers. That's the main kind of bit that everybody thinks of this song. That's what they hear. Get that under your fingers first. Pause the video now if you need to before I move on. If you feel like that's reasonably achievable, let's go into the verse now. The verse, can you see the top line is repeated 4 times? So it's the only thing that's different in that is there's an extra note sort of taken out of the last bar with that sort of fiddly bit around the D, and the C is very simplified in bar 3. And then you've got the ending. So let's pick through it. Bar 1 of the verse. Those first two bars, there's nothing different in that to what we covered in the intro. That's the main hook, is that. It's a great hook. We then move to the C chord, and I'm going to fret that C chord, and this time we're not messing around with the little finger. We're just going to pick through the middle 4 strings, A, D, G, B, and I'm using thumb, index, middle, ring, and then I come back on myself. Now, we like the patterns like this, we like to keep them in groups of 8, and to do that and keep the timing, they then pick the B string one more time. You see at the very, very end over here. So you're going to sort of cascade through 7 notes, and then you just want to catch this cheeky little dude at the end. And I'm using my ring finger for that very last note of the 3rd bar. Moving into the 4th bar, I'm doing the claw motion on the bass note of the G on the bottom of the chord, followed by the top, and then I do that on the D chord. And then for the little twiddly bit at the end, I'm basically removing that 2nd fret of the G. That's not there in the verses, it just does the open, hammer, open, hammer, pull, and then this D note here on the 3rd fret of the B string. It doesn't resolve it. Let me play that top line for you. Now it sounds like there's a note missing, but that's because you're at there's a note missing over here, but that's because there's repeat markers and you've got to go straight back. There's no time to squeeze that extra note in, so you're going to do the top line 4 times, and then at the end, at the bottom line of this slide, can you see how pretty much repeats the first 2 bars of the verse again. Now what that does is it gives it a little bit of a gap for Lady Gaga's part. So you'll see Bradley Cooper sings exclusively over verse 1 for those 4 times, and then as we move to the bottom of the slide, it's just instrumental. There's no singing. So from this point, you'll play the 4 times through the verse. Bradley Cooper will be singing. You then go to the... And then everything that we've played in that verse section, you'll see this on the PDF, don't forget to download it. I would advise it with this piece because there's quite a lot in it. You then play exactly all the same again, but then Lady Gaga's singing that part. If we're okay with that up to press, we've just done this. We then go into the build and we go into this sort of, there's an instrumental section then followed by this sort of big building in the next bit. And it's all very, very loosely based on these chords. So we're going to pick, the rhythm stays the same. Can you see the rhythm for bar 1, 2 and 4 are exactly the same. The only reason bar 3 is different is because we're picking through a passing chord, the whole point of this module that we're currently working on in the Facebook group. So I'm fretting an A minor chord to begin with, and I'm gonna pick the first 2 notes with the thumb. So I'm picking the A string and the D string with the thumb. I'm then picking the 2nd fret of the G with the index finger, and then I'm picking high E, B, G, B, and I'm using the 3 fingers there. Now I don't know if you can see this high E string here, the note value is different on that in comparison to all the others. The first 3 notes are quavers, then you've got a crotchet here at the very top, and what that means is you need to hang on to that note for twice as long as you do all the others. You notice how I let that one breathe a little bit more. I then change to a D chord. Now the fingering more or less stays the same apart from the bass note because we've only got 4 strings to play with. So I'm going to pick through with all 4 of me usable fingers, thumb, index, middle and ring. And again, I get to the top of that note and I'm going to let that second fret of the high E string, I'm going to let that ring out for a little bit longer, and then I come back on myself. First 2 bars. I'm then going to pick a G note, and I'm going to pick the bass note with my thumb, and then I'm picking the G, the B and the high E string. And there's no sort of elongated note in this. Can you see over in this bar, it's all quavers. All the notes are holding hands. I'm then going to change to an F sharp over D and do the same. And then in the 4th bar, and I'm basically keeping the same finger in there as in bar 1. The only difference is I'm picking the bass note on the low E string. Let's have a look at all of that. And this is to be repeated 4 times. Following on from that, we sort of keep it in a similar vein, and this is in the build. Now, can you see at the bottom of the slide, there's these jaws that kind of open up. Now, that's called a crescendo. Now, this pattern, this chord progression is played twice because we've got repeat markers either side. And what the jaws mean in a crescendo means you want to get louder and louder and louder and louder until there's the big bit next, which is the big finale with the big We'll get to that bit. Now, I don't know if you've seen the music video for this, but it's all kind of clips from the film. Now, I haven't seen the film, but I've heard from other people the sort of gist of what it's all about. I'm not a film person, really. But in this bit, this is the kind of people are fighting and smashing glasses and falling out, and it's all kind of getting a bit dramatic in this bit. And you want to try and channel a little bit of that in your playing, okay? So we're going back to that E minor 7, which is the E minor with the pinky on the top, or the ring finger, either's fine. And can you see how the pattern more or less stays the same, but it all depends whether you're playing a 6-string chord, a 5-string chord, or a 4-string chord. Now what I mean by that is an E minor, you strum all 6 strings. A B minor, you only strum 5 strings, you strum from the A string downwards. A D chord, you only strum from the D string downwards. So once you see that parallel in the pattern, so E minor 7, there. So I'm picking the bass note with my thumb, I then take the middle finger and I'm picking the G, the D and the A. I then take that group of notes, move it down a string and then do it again, middle, index, thumb, index. To the B minor. Now, I'm sorry folks, you have to do the bar for this, otherwise you don't get the bass note in. To the D chord. And then A major, because everything's been A minor up to this point. Now the idea is we start really quiet, not slowly, I nearly said slowly. We don't want it to be slow, we want it to be nice and quiet and gradually get louder. Second time. I don't know if that came across on YouTube, but I'm trying to get louder and louder and louder, and your fingers will get a little bit sore, especially if you're using flesh instead of nails. Now what that does is that sort of explodes on a big A minor chord for a beat, a big D chord for a beat. G and D share a bar, but it's 2 beats a piece, and then you've got that big E minor. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you've two options really. You can either do it with your thumb, because we've got a strumming bit coming up, or what I tend to do when I'm playing fingerstyle and then I've got a little bit of strumming coming, I'll do that sort of flamenco thing where I sort of use this part of my nail as a plectrum, and I'll hit the strings of the guitar with sort of 2 or 3 digits. Now, you've got to kind of get this right, otherwise you catch the cuticles of your nails on your strings and it really hurts. But can you hear how much brighter compared to... Now, if I was doing this in a gig scenario, I probably wouldn't have time to grab a pick because the next bit's strummed, so I would just I'd almost sort of try a little bit harder with my fingers with this sort of flicking motion. If you'd like me to do it, that probably warrants a video on its own of strumming with the fingers in that flamenco-y kind of style. If that sounds like something that you'd like me to expand upon, let me know in the comments. So following that, we go into a nice little strumming bit, which, hello, I've run out of slides. It's the same chords, but you've got A minor, D, G and D share a bar, and then you've got E minor in between the brackets, which means that you're repeating them 3 times. And it's good old down, down, up, down strumming. So you've got... etc. You're going to do that 3 times, followed by just a big fat E minor on its own. It ends quite abruptly, does this song. And I'm not mad about it either. It leaves... I love that where a song just kind of like stops and you can almost hear the sort of sound pressure just stop. It's really cool songwriting technique. So there's a lot in that. If you are struggling with those patterns, hang out for a couple of days, and then module 3 of the fingerpicking course has so many exercises geared towards this that will really help you, and that's the point. For those of you at the back that haven't sort of seen what I do before, I've got a 6-module fingerpicking course that's being uploaded sort of in 6 sequential weeks, and each one of those modules has a song attached to it, and these modules have exercises that are really going to help you play in that particular style. So last week was Dust in the Wind, the week before that was Everybody Hurts. So if you're finding those useful, let me know in the comments. Right, don't forget to go get the free PDF, subscribe and like the video if you haven't done already, and I'll see you next week for another acoustic guitar lesson. Thank you so much.